What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the 90. We've got a very special video for today because we have two special videos. This one, plus, if you've not already know, Enzo Maresca has been interviewed by the coach's voice. We're going to be going over that. We're going to be looking at some of the tactics. We're going to be looking at some of the formations that he's talking about. He mentions a couple of things throughout this as well. One, complete control, and control he mentions time and time again in the video. And two, he mentions overloading and having an extra man. I'll link the full video down below, so make sure you go and check that out. I don't want to take too much from it, but I want to show you some things that I really enjoyed, what I want to hear more of, and also some slight criticisms. Overall, Enzo's been doing great for us, but let's get into the first thing, is this. So he concentrates on the back four, and back five, sorry. Specifically, he looks at the fullbacks. So in this case, we're used to talking about the fullbacks in Ricardo Pereira, and that's mentioned a lot throughout this video. Again, I'll link it down below for a little bit more detail in terms of that. However, again, Harry Winks taking up this position to two centre-backs. Interestingly, at times we say a back three. It is almost like, and he mentions the back five at parts. This position, this fullback, doesn't actually play. It doesn't. We think it's a back three, but essentially it's a back two. If we even mentions things like this, the fact that that fullback position is going so high. I'll show you an example of, again, from formation from a recent game. So just looking at this game, which is against West Brom, we can see that James Justin was playing in that back three. Even though he set up a 4-3-3, he explains in the video, again, I don't want to play the video because of copyright, and also I'd rather you got to watch the full thing. And after that, come back to this video and I'll explain a little bit more. But we can see that James Justin is playing in that fullback position. If we click into it, we can actually see that, again, the actual formation he's playing is actually relatively through the on that left-hand side, pushing into that second half, playing quite high up. So when we're saying we're playing this kind of the three formation, at times he's moving into midfield in positions, joining in, not particularly with the attack, but joining into the midfield. So when we do say that he's playing this back three formation, at times he's playing in between the spaces, and you compare that to the likes of a Harry Winks, who's given the license to run around. You see, he actually plays in front of Harry Winks, alongside and in front of Harry Winks. So the idea we play a back three isn't reflected sometimes in the statistics, which I thought was interesting. Again, I'm not here trying to say, oh, this is bad, this is terrible, but I just thought it was interesting to note. The next thing he mentions as well is actually about the back five, and considering the different formations in terms of how we usually set up with a flying fullbacks. In playing these two fullbacks slightly differently means there's five people to defend compared to the three or the potentially two. And again, it comes back to the word that he keeps mentioning, control. He mentions that a dozen times throughout this interview as well, and this analysis, which I thought was interesting. And it helps, again, that there's almost like a five in midfield and a five up top attack. So even that, the five we're mentioning, when he's talking about this, note that he's not actually mentioning Hermansen in that. We've seen Hermansen a few times. Obviously, when we've watched the football, we can see he moves into that position, which I'll get into a little bit later. But this is the five without Hermansen in it. The next thing he touches on when we play against a 4-3-3, a traditional 4-3-3, mentioning about the midfield, the fact with his position, you have that box, and as you can see, it's before when we talked to Anil, we talked before the season started, and when we were playing Northampton, for example, we had this square box formation. In reality, it's more of a, I don't even know, trapezium kind of shape, with the two wide play, with the two number 8s in KDH and probably in Diddy being our main number left and right player, coming slightly wide. Now, this is not something that potentially I've seen too much at the time. The only time that we've seen it, we've played that much, like this wide. Normally they play more central, and they're allowed to roam in these pockets of space. And it is something I'm going to mention later on in terms of the number 8s and things like that. But again, here's one thing that he's talking about when it comes to overloads and when it comes to complete control of the game. Overloading in these positions where we've got, again, a three-man midfield and we're playing a 4. It allows us to have that extra man, again, that all, again, complete control and overload the opposition. And he does mention as well something we've seen this season as well, when the opposition has decided to go man to man with Leicester City. As we can see from above, the fact that we can see here that if the centre back moves out, then yes, it'll leave the one-on-one with the striker. I don't think we've seen too much of this at the moment, where normally we've seen more of a camping, a block of 4, a 5, or 4-4-2 formation. We've not seen this too much, but at times I can't. The idea is great. I just don't think we've executed it as of yet with one Jamie Vardy or Iheanacho on that that centre back. It's again, the formation seems to be working, and people. I don't think that the opposition are being dragged out of position as much as potentially Enzo wants them to. Remember, this is the same criticism that Pep had when we beat them, and Rodri had when we beat them 4-2. 5-2, sorry. We camped out their position and we held our game, and it made sure that we hit them on the counter. It made that Pep's way of playing didn't work. And this could be an example of where we haven't, the idea of this is great, but potentially we haven't seen this in action as much as probably Enzo wants us to. The next thing we've got, as we can see here, is something that Enzo's mentioned when everybody marks off man for man, what do we do next? And when following on from what we mentioned last time, this is a bit where I had a little bit of not issues with what Enzo's saying, but something that maybe is not executed to the way that Enzo wants. He mentions that Iheanacho, and we've seen rightfully so, is dropping back into this midfield, or potentially into the two here, to link the play when these 4 players are marked out of the game. Now, at times, I've put again, this is kind of the strongest, I'd say, ish formation that we've got. Probably Vestergaard, maybe Cody when he gets fully fit. Obviously, I put Doyle in over JJ because JJ's Doyle would be the starting left back, fullback if he was starting. But something I want to mention that Ian actually mentions in the video that to drop deep, to drop deep, create the space, create the 1-2, and then create the space. However, I think with the way that Leicester City play, Iheanacho drops way too deep, and at times he's linking up with Vestergaard and Fast, where Doyle can push over this way. Vestergaard and Fast would be the centre back duo, just both here, and Iheanacho is then linking the play with these two. Then you've got Winks and Ricardo here as well. So when in that position, it seems quite good, but I think Iheanacho is dropping too deep for this formation. And when he is dropping deep, we need something else to happen. Ndidi and KDH need to be running into the box and getting in these positions so that you've got the option to pass it over to Fasawa and Mavididi, who are pushed out really wide. And then you've got the option of, again, getting these players into this position. Now, KDH has been having here, and Diddy's been getting some good positions as well. But I think as this formation plays, and as we are dropping in Iheanacho to that position, in my opinion, he is dropping too deep. We need him to come back to potentially just before the likes of, again, he doesn't need to get in front of Winks and Ricardo. He's potentially pushing way too deep. And that meaning that, again, when he pushes deep, that's fine. But it also means that if you're looking as well, KDH and Ndidi are pushing down deep as with him. If that's the case, if he's there to link play, the idea is, in my opinion, Iheanacho comes in and this ball comes over to the centre backs. If we are going to play that deep, then the ball needs to come here to Vestergaard, into Iheanacho, back to Vestergaard, back to Fast, and then the ball spins over. Fatau and then Ndidi needs to be on there. And the 2-8s need to be on their bike and running towards the goal. I think that's an area that potentially we are lacking in a little bit that will hopefully be developed in the future. So this is something that Enzo is mentioning in the tactics. As you can see here on this, in the midfield, you can see that he's mentioning that Iheanacho is dropping deep. But the 2 fullbacks need to be moving up. The 2 number 8s need to be moving up into attacking positions where, again, Iheanacho is linking the ball. He's not coming here. At times, Iheanacho is coming into his own half in order to link ball. I think part of it is just naivety. We know in Iheanacho where he's kind of a live wire, live cracker. And we've been surprised on how deep he has been running. So I think for what Enzo needs from him, he doesn't need to be as deep as this video is currently making out. He also mentions one more thing as well, with Vestergaard playing on this left-hand side. Also, Hermansen can come out and then join in. So it's like a back four. So again, we're playing with 11 outfield players. We know how Hermansen's good with his feet. One thing that I found interesting that Enzo mentioned is that Vestergaard can either go this side, which we've seen more common. Vestergaard coming the left-hand side and Hermansen coming the right-hand side and Hermansen coming the left-hand side. But also, if the space is moved, depending on his position, Hermansen could come and play in this position as well, which I thought was interesting. Again, we've not seen too much of this, but again, we're still early on into the Enzo tenure. It's going to take a time for him to implement his style and the way of playing formations. So overall, I thought this video was great. Just a couple of things again, without sounding like I'm criticizing, I just want to mention a couple of things that I'd love to hear from Enzo a little bit more. Number one, at times we've seen Hermansen spin the ball out to Mavididi for Tau and get people on the run. And one of the things he mentioned Pep in it as well. But I want to see some of the De Zerbi football and some of the mentality that we've seen from De Zerbi, which the ball pops over to Vestergaard, then into Winks and Ricardo. They invite the press from the opposition, and then Vestergaard can fling it over to KDH, Mavididi, Fatau. He can play those long balls and break the press as well. I think some of the time we are reliant on Ricardo Pereira because he's a fantastic player. Defensively, he's adapted his game, I think, as well to be a lot more, not as much speeding into challenge as much, but being in the right position at the right time. Also, from a defensive point of view, from an attacking point of view, also he can beat a man, play a 1-2, and drive the ball and dribble forward, which I think was fantastic. But I'd love to see going forward again how we can utilize this more. So, if for example, Hermansen pings the ball over to Winks, or even Vestergaard playing the 1-2, playing within this, inviting the pressure, and then playing the ball out to Ricardo, and then we're away. Or playing the long ball up to Vestergaard, then he can go over to Fatau or Mavididi. That's something I'd like to see more as well. And the other thing that I'd like to see more of, just in terms of what Enzo makes of this, something I've mentioned, these two a little bit more. He didn't mention as much it was more to do with the inverted fullback. There was a lot of information on, and a little bit to do with the overload and mentioning Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy, because I think Jamie Vardy doesn't track back and as deep as much as Iheanacho does. I want to see what he makes of these two. So obviously, if Iheanacho pulls back, I want to see these two again come in the box and what Enzo makes of these people. Like KDH has been arriving in the box late, and Ndidi was doing it early parts of the season, but I want to see more of it. At times, Fatal was coming in. Ndidi's making, I remember making the run just against the West Brom game for the goal. Really, really well worked goal. And then KDH came in to finish the ball off in the box. I'd love to see more of these kind of moves as the game again is changing. So even if you've got Iheanacho, I'd love to see what Enzo makes of these two number 8 roles. He's concentrating a lot in this game on specifically Ricardo and Winks, and also mentioning Iheanacho. But I think I'd love to see what he makes going forward of the two number 8s and how that plays into the formation. So that was it. Overall, I really enjoyed that video. Make sure you go and watch the full thing. I didn't want to spoil too much of it as well. Just to give you my thoughts and I won't say slight criticism, but just things I'd like to see more of. Enzo's definitely got in his locker, and Enzo definitely wants to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and we are in a fantastic place for them at the moment. The team have taken to it. The fans, most of the fans have taken to it. There's still the moany groany lot, as you probably know from if you go to the ground. There's forward. I'd love for them to see not this video, the other video, and what we're trying to achieve. But I'm all in. I'm genuinely so happy with the way that we are looking at, and the way we're playing. I can see him being here in the philosophy, and everybody's bought into it. The players and the teams are around there, and the owners have bought into it as well. So top with the fact he bought in Hermansen, the fact that we've already got, we couldn't shift on the likes of Danny Ward, Daniel Everson, and even Alex Smithies, to be honest. We couldn't shift on these players. But we still built in a keeper. We still trusted him because coming into that space as well. Another player that didn't get mentioned, but I'll be interested to see what he does with it. Tom Cannon. So I was mentioning a lot about Iheanacho and Iheanacho dropping deep and then the other players running around. We've not seen anything of Tom Cannon. We've only seen the highlight reels for his time at Preston. I really want to see what he'll do in an Enzo team. and what kind of player he is. We've heard he's a David Nugent-esque type of player, which will bring something different. But I'd love to see, as he drops deep, again, I know I keep talking about it, the two number 8s go on and see if they can really do something. Overall, I'm completely in love with Enzo. The football he's playing, way he's doing things. At times, it hasn't worked out. But again, it's considering where we are in first place with the likes of, again, ahead of the likes of Leeds, Southampton, Ipswich still behind us as well. I'm here for it, genuinely here for it. And I really wanted to see more of that number 8 position, to be honest with you, and also what the roles of the wingers are. At times, we've seen they're stretched so wide, they're literally, if I was do it on the screen, it's literally like this. They're on the touchline, just ready to go. But what is their role in terms of the entire game, in terms of their role within the game, and how does that mean in terms of the formation? He mentions the 5 at the back. At times, Mavididi and Fatah were tracking so deep. McAteer, who another player to mention, tracks really deep as well. So it'll be interesting to see what he makes of that, because in the 4-3-3 that we defend as, I don't even believe we defend as a 4-3-3 because we've got so many players back pushing into these positions. But again, this is to say, I've really enjoyed this, if I've not said it for the 4th time. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this video down below. And I'll see everybody for the next pros match. Goodbye.